Good morning, students. IPM International School and College welcomes you to your iLearn class of Commercial Studies. My name is Ms. Prerna Sengar, and today we'll start with the fourth chapter of Commercial Studies, that is Classification of Commercial Organizations. In this video, the topic which we'll study in detail is the meaning and features of private sector enterprises. So let's get started. So first we will start with the meaning of commercial organizations. Now the meaning of commercial organization is something which you have already studied in the previous chapters. So let's do a quick revision to that. So the organizations which undertake commercial activities having their main objective to earn money are known as the commercial organization. Now the name itself is telling you the meaning, that is the organizations which are involved in the commercial activities. And what do you understand by the term commercial activities? Commercial activities, they can also be called as the economic activities where the main objective of a person or an organization is to earn money. So let's do a revision to it, that the organizations which are involved in various kind of commercial activities or economic activities with the objective of earning money, they are known as the commercial organization. The next point says that these organizations are the one which may be owned by one or more individuals. Now again, these organizations are those kind of organization which are not necessarily supposed to be owned by a single person. It can be owned by an individual or it can also be owned by a group of people as well. Further, it says that commercial organization can be classified into three categories. That is the private sector enterprises, the public sector enterprises and the joint sector enterprises. Now please remember and understand that this classification of commercial organization over here is being given on the basis of the ownership. Means that who is going to be the owner of the organization. Like we are starting with the first thing, that is private sector enterprises. So private sector enterprises are the ones which are supposed to be owned by the private individuals or by private entrepreneurs with no government control. Second is the public sector enterprises. Now these enterprises are supposed to be owned by the central and the state government, and there will be no interference, no operations and no interference of the private business or individuals. And third one is the joint sector enterprises, which is supposed to be jointly owned by the government, the private entrepreneurs and the public jointly. And that is why it comes to known as the joint sector enterprises. So in this section, in this video, we are going to focus on the meaning and feature of the public sector enterprises. Meaning of private sector enterprises. Now, in the previous slide, I already told you that these organizations, these enterprises are the ones which are completely owned, controlled, managed and financed by the private individuals. Or we can say that they are owned, controlled, managed by the private entrepreneurs or private businessmen as well. The second point to be noted under the private sector enterprises is that there is no involvement of the government. No involvement of the government means that whatever decisions will be taken under these organizations, whatever controlling power is being given, all these things will lie only in the hands of the private businessmen. There will be no involvement of the government in running and managing these enterprises. And the third point and the most important point is their objective. So because private sector enterprises are the commercial organization, so that is why what is going to be the main objective? The main objective is going to be to earn profits. Now over here you can see some examples of private sector enterprises, like we have ICICI Bank. It's a bank, it's a banking institution, but again it is a private sector bank. Then we have Tata Consultancy Services, we have Wipro, Infosys, other examples can be Reliance Industries, etc. So these are all the examples of the private sector enterprises. Now let's start with the features of the private sector enterprises. The first feature is the private ownership and control. Now this point is something which we have already covered and studied under the meaning of the private sector enterprises, which states that these enterprises are owned, controlled and managed by the private businessmen. It means that the entire decision, the managing and controlling thing, and the decision making power of these enterprises, it completely lies in the hands of the private individuals and not in the hands of the governments. Now, if you go back to the second point of the meaning of commercial organization, the second point over there stated that these organizations, they can be owned by a single person or they can also be owned by a group of people. Now, according to that point, we will understand the second point given under the heading private ownership and control. Now, in the second point over here, they are telling you that a business organization can be owned by a one person, and it can be owned by 2, 3, 4, 10, 100 and many number of people as well. So understand that if any kind of commercial organization which has been owned by a single person, means if there is only a single person or a single owner of a company or a shop or any firm, then that type of organization will be known as the sole proprietorship. Similarly, on the other hand, if any organization is owned by two people or a group of people, then they will be termed as, they can be termed either as the joint Hindu family business, or they can also can be called as the cooperative society. They can also be termed as the partnership, and lastly they can also be known as the joint stock company. Now, all these terms which you see over here, these are the different kind of business organization. Again, I'll repeat, like we have sole proprietorship where we have only single owner, then we have joint Hindu family business, cooperative society, partnership or a joint stock company. Now, these are the kinds of business organization where the owner will not be a single person, but these organization can be owned by 2, 3, 10, 100, 150 depending upon the certain circumstances. So you will study about these kinds of organization in the upcoming chapters. Now let's move to the second feature of the private sector enterprises, that is the profit motive. Now again, we have already understood and studied that because the private sector enterprises are the commercial organization, so that is why the main objective over here is not to serve, will not be to serve the society, but the main objective, the main concern is to earn more and more profit for themselves. The third feature of private sector enterprises is no state participation. So again, we have already covered this point in the meaning of the private sector enterprises only. No state participation means that there will be no interference or no involvement of the central or the state government in running the operations, and managing the working of the private sector enterprises. Now you have to understand over here, when I am saying no state participation or no involvement of the government, it means that internally the government cannot interfere in the functioning and the operations or in the decision making capacity of these organization. But definitely there has to be an existence of government. Now why there is an existence of government? Because government is going to act as a regulatory body which will be setting up various kind of rules, regulations, laws and norms which are supposed to be followed by each and every individual living in a country. Now each and every citizen living in a country can constitute you, me, and it also involves the various kind of companies and the organizations which are running in order to earn profit or in order to render service to the society. So again, I am repeating myself, when I am saying that there is no state participation or no involvement of the government, then I mean to say that there will be no involvement of the government in the internal functioning and the management of these organizations. But more or less, these organizations will be required to follow the rules, regulations, norms and the laws which are being implemented by the government in order to keep the tab on the activities of these enterprises. So I hope that point C, that is no state participation, is absolutely clear to all of you. Now moving to the next feature, that is private finance. Now private finance, when you talk about finance, means we are talking about money. We are talking about capital and the funds which will be required by these organizations in order to survive in the market. Now again, I have already told you that whenever you are starting a business, whether it is a small scale business or a large scale business, for that you will definitely need money to keep yourself survive in the market. So over here, the capital here is arranged by the owner itself. They can raise the loans in order to meet their funds requirement. Now, because they are the private sector enterprises, the owners here are the private individual, so they themselves are responsible, the owners themselves are responsible to arrange for the funds and capital of their organization. For that purpose, they can take loans and advances from the bank or from any financial institution, and they can also make use of their saving. So let's see that how these owners, they arrange money depending upon the different kinds of the organization. Now when we talk about the sole proprietorship, over there the capital will be arranged by the sole trader or the sole proprietor, who is known as the owner of that sole proprietorship firm. In a partnership firm, the capital will be invested by the partners. Like suppose you and I have started a partnership firm. So we are the partners. So we will be responsible to arrange for the capital of that partnership firm. Similarly, for joint stock company, the capital will be arranged by the issue of shares and debentures in the market. Now let's move to the last feature of these enterprises, that is independent management. Now over here, that is under the private sector enterprises, the management of all the operation and the work is supposed to be done by the owners themselves, because they are the owners, they are the ones who are investing the capital, they are the ones who are controlling everything. So definitely the management of private sector enterprises is going to lie in the hand of its owners only. So see, in case of sole proprietorship and partnership, the owner directly manages the firm. In sole proprietorship, the sole trader or the sole proprietor is going to manage the functioning and the operation of his firm. Similarly, in case of partnership, like I told you, like suppose you and I are the partners of ABC Limited. So you and I will be responsible to manage the operations and the functioning of that ABC Limited, which is a partnership firm. Similarly, if you talk about the joint stock company, over there the management lies in the hands of the directors, who are elected by the representatives. So I hope that in this segment you have clearly understood the meaning of commercial organization and the meaning and features of private sector enterprises. So in the upcoming videos, we will have a detailed discussion on the meaning and features of the public sector enterprises and of the joint sector enterprises. Till then, the staff and management of IPM International School and College urges you to stay home, stay safe and stay connected. And along with that, let's use this platform of iLearn to teach and learn in a smarter way. Thank you.